Today, we are diving into Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini, your new AI teaching assistants. Thank you for joining me in this AI-powered teaching. Unlock new possibilities with Gemini and Copilot. Let's get started. Here is our agenda for this training. We'll jump into our goals and some basics, how we can chat with AI, how we can use Gemini as your AI teaching assistant, how to navigate Microsoft 365 with Copilot, and then we'll wrap up with some AI ethics. Throughout this training, it may be best to open up another tab and demonstrate these tools as we go over them. You can pause this video at any point in time to try the tools out on your own. And welcome to this training. I am Nikki Sibrel. Today, we'll explore how AI innovative tools can transform your teaching. Our goals for today are to understand Gemini and Copilot and how these basic functions work, how we will explore using AI to enhance lessons and personalized learning, and then we'll learn responsible AI usage. First, we're going to go over how to chat or work with AI. You can ask Copilot and Gemini different prompts or input different prompts to get responses. Prompts can be questions or something you need. There are four main areas to consider when writing an effective prompt. All are not required, but the more you enter, the more helpful it will be with generating a great response. Before we create our first prompt, it's important to remember that we should never input any student information, such as names or email addresses or anything that could identify these students, into Gemini or Copilot, as these systems retain information for future reference. A great example of this is if we ask for a lesson plan to help with a struggling reader but input their name, such as Nikki Sibrel is struggling to read, or even just my first name, that Nikki in the third grade is struggling to read, at another point in time, that information can be delivered to someone else. If a teacher down the road says, "What can you tell me about Nikki Sibrel?" or "Do people named Nikki know how to read?" it could give a response of, "No, they do not," or "Nikki Sibrel cannot read." So it's important to keep that student's autonomy and privacy with using AI. And we'll go over that a little bit more later. In the details of this video, you should see a link to this presentation. You can open this presentation and use these tools just like I do. Anytime you see these white buttons here, that is a guide for you, something you can have. If you click on the prompt guide, that will open up another tab for you. As you see here in the middle of the screen, we have persona, task, context, and format. These are the four main areas that we want to consider when we're writing our prompt. And there's an example below. You are a science tutor. Explain the process of cell division to a high school student in simple, easy to understand terms. This is a prompt that we can enter into Copilot or Gemini and get multiple responses. Our persona is that we are a science teacher. The task is what we're asking AI to do, which is explain the process of cell division. The context to high school students, and the format is simple, easy to understand terms. Another example is to draft an email to parents regarding the details of our fall festival. The format is an email. The task is that we need this written for parents. And even though we don't have all the criteria in there, we will get a response and we will probably get the response that we needed. Now that we know the basics of chatting with AI and creating a prompt, let's go over Gemini. Gemini is your AI teaching assistant. Gemini.google.com is a website where you can chat with Google's advanced AI to get help with various tasks. You'll see in the boxes listed here are some example prompts that you could use. You can ask Gemini to summarize some information for English language learners. You could also ask Gemini to translate some information or a passage to a different language for your students as well. You can get help with your lesson planning and creative content by asking Gemini to create lists or giving you worksheet ideas or craft ideas to help with your lesson. Again, here you will see the white button that will show prompt examples. If you click on that, you're going to get a full list of different prompts that you could try in Gemini. Let's walk through how that might look now. Once you've opened up a new tab, type in gemini.google.com and then hit enter. You'll be redirected to Gemini. The first thing you'll see here are some prompt options. This is a good way to start learning how to use Gemini. But if you already know what prompt you want, go ahead and enter it right here. How can I teach the water cycle to 7-year-olds? So again, with Gemini, we can enter prompts that are questions or demands. So now that we've entered this, we can see that Gemini is going to give us a response. And here is a step-by-step guide on how we can teach the water cycle with different activities, examples, and how we can explain this to our students. Once you get a response, if you don't like it, you can hit Show Drafts. And then there are 3 drafts to choose from. Each will be a little bit different from the other. If you do not like any of them, you can hit Generate Drafts for new ones. After entering your prompt, if you realize you would like to edit that prompt to make it more clear and to add more information, you can hit Edit. Whenever you're ready for a new prompt, just hit New Chat. You'll also see over on the left-hand side this hamburger menu. The hamburger menu will show you the most recent prompts you've entered. If you have a prompt that you want to keep so you don't forget, like maybe this oatmeal cookie recipe that I asked for, we can pin that to the top. You can also use Gemini for fun things like create a workout or how to explain to Gen Alpha why the Spice Girls are iconic. And now Gemini will give us a response. And now I'm going to edit this to let Gemini know that I only need this in one paragraph. And so instead of a bulleted list, I will now have a paragraph to read. Now I need Gemini to help me with my lesson plan. I'm about to start teaching my 7th graders about ecosystems, and I'd like to use Gemini as a tool to help with prepping that lesson. I have an outline that I want to copy and paste. So now we can see this prompt starts with me saying, help me create a lesson for 7th graders on ecosystems using this outline. This outline goes over the key points of ecosystems, the different passages, components of an ecosystem, understanding food chains, the different types of ecosystems, all of this great stuff. It's a lot of information that I'm going to teach my 7th graders. So I put this in here as a prompt. Even though it's really long, Gemini is going to help me. Here we go. This is the lesson plan that they've started for me. And again, since my prompt was so long, now my response will be too. I've now asked Gemini to create a worksheet for this lesson. I can put this in Google Docs and share it as an assignment in my Google Classroom, or I can print this out. Here are the multiple worksheets that I can create for my students. If I have something I like, I can hit share and export it to Docs. If you'd like to double check the responses you get, click on this G and you'll see where this information came from. Now down here, you can see that a new document was created in Google Docs based on that information from Gemini. So here we go. I can take this and put this directly in my Google Classroom if I'd like. And you can see that the title is the prompt that I put into Gemini. While using Gemini is a wonderful tool, just like any AI tool, it's important to understand that there are biases and that we still need to cite and double check our information. This is a great lesson that I can use for teaching about ecosystems, but I should always stick to the curriculum in working with my leads and specialists to ensure that what I'm teaching is part of the curriculum and that I am following guidelines. Let's go over how to recognize some of the biases in AI. Well, I can ask AI, what is the best national park? It's going to give me an answer, but it's important to keep in mind best is relative and subjective. They even told me this. Now, if I edit and say, what is the best way to teach a toddler to read? Well, when we asked Gemini about what is the best park, it told us that best is subjective. But when we went and asked what is the best way to teach a toddler to read, it dropped that. Now, this may be a perfect plan to teach a toddler how to start reading, but it's important to understand that each student is different, each child is different. While this plan may work for my nieces and nephews, it may not work for my child because they're in speech therapy. The way they learn will be a little bit different. And also, a toddler can be a child anywhere from 2 to 4. This plan may be perfectly for a 4-year-old and not at all for a 2-year-old. So even though we can check the sources and see where we got this information, we still want to look for sources outside of Gemini or outside of Copilot when we hop into Copilot because there are biases in AI. AI gives you a response based on what it finds in the internet. It's always important to double check yourself. Use your other resources before having Gemini or Copilot completely create a lesson plan for you. Now, it is a great tool for assistance. Just like with our 7th grade ecosystem lesson, we can ask Gemini to create a reading log for middle school students to read 30 minutes a day for 5 days. And so Gemini is now going to create a reading log here for me. And then I can ask Gemini to translate this to Spanish. If I want to create a reading log, now for my Spanish class, I have that, or for my Spanish speaking students. And now I want Gemini to translate this to Swahili. And I now have the exact same reading log in Swahili for those English language learners. And again, if you have something like this that you want to keep, just pin it. And then you can unpin when you no longer need it. And again, this is a great tool, but you may want to check with your English language learners to double check that this is a correct translation. One of the other fun things that Gemini can do is you could take a photo, paste it into Gemini, and say, how can I make these? And then Gemini is going to search the web to find this picture and possibly even find me a recipe. Because again, Gemini is grabbing all the information quickly through the web. So here's the photo I put in. Gemini recognized that this is churros. Here is the recipe and the ingredients to make churros. Now take a second to pause this video to play with Gemini. Try asking Gemini some questions on how to get some help with your lessons, or just have fun with it. Ask Gemini for a 5-day workout plan, or how to create this recipe, or what are fun things to do with maybe your spouse or your kids or your family in the area, and see what kind of responses you get. Now I'm going to ask Gemini to help me create a lesson plan based on the photo of a worksheet. Create a lesson to go with the photo of this worksheet. And then I'm going to copy and paste my photo here. Now we can see my photo, which is a landforms worksheet. And here's the lesson plan that I can use with that worksheet. Here's the title of my lesson plan, the grade level, which is 1st and 2nd grade, the objectives, the materials I might want to use, and then going through these steps. Again, we can see the drafts here, but also, while this is a great lesson plan for teaching my 1st and 2nd graders on landforms, it's very important to make sure that this information is up to date. So you should always fact check and double check. Now that we've had the chance to dive into Gemini, keep in mind that throughout the slideshow and the presentation, there are white buttons here for you to use these tools. So you can click on prompt examples, and then a Google Doc will automatically go into your drive by selecting Make a Copy. And you can try any of these prompts. There's some here for fun, such as tell me a joke, or there's some prompts here to help with creating assessments, getting feedback, and getting some tips on student engagement. You can also make your own. Now let's look at another AI tool. Copilot is very similar to Gemini, but it works closely with Microsoft. You can access Copilot by going to copilot.microsoft.com. Let's check that out now. In a new tab up in the address bar, type in copilot.microsoft.com. And just like Gemini, we can enter prompts here. We can enter prompts to get summaries of documents, help with lessons plans, or we can ask Copilot to draft an email to my team asking to help plan a winter festival. And here we go. Now Copilot will draft an email for us. If we like this email, we can use this, or we can generate it again. You can like, dislike, copy it, or even have Copilot begin to read it to you. Just like Gemini, if you do not like the response, you can hit edit and generate it again. If we hit export, we can export it to Word, a PDF, or Notepad. I'm just going to copy this and then put it into Outlook. Let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do. So we'll hit New Topic. This time I'm going to add a PDF. I'm going to ask Copilot to summarize this for me. This is a sales cycle worksheet. You can do this with other documents. If you have long articles that you need to summarize, or maybe even a long lesson plan. Just like Gemini, Copilot will give you a response. As you can see here, it gave you activities for your students, key terms, the stages. Copilot has walked you through the basics of what that worksheet covers. And if we want, we can copy that, or we can hit export and export that into Word. Let's view that now. And here we have it. And just like anything, we can save it in our Google Drive so that we have it for later. You can use Copilot to help with your lesson plans as well. I'm going to upload a photo and ask Copilot to help create a lesson. So I have the photo for my students to label the parts of a cell. Help create a lesson plan with this photo of a worksheet. But just like with any form of AI, it's very important that we double check our sources. We want to make sure that this aligns with our curriculum, and we want to be sure that we're double checking ourselves. There's always room for error when using AI. So now we can see that based on the photo here where the students need to label the parts of a cell, this is a middle school biology activity. Here is the objective, the materials needed, an introduction, the actual labeling of the worksheet where we will distribute that, and then how we will go over that with our students. Copilot has even explained to us those parts of the cell and what they're used for. As you see down here, AI-generated content may be incorrect. It's always important to keep those biases in mind. Now let's look into how we can use Copilot with some of our Microsoft tools. Let's enter a prompt into Copilot to ask Copilot to generate an Excel spreadsheet showing how many medals each country won in the Olympics. You can ask Copilot how to help you with a budget, how to help manage your inventory, or even analyze current data that you already have in an Excel spreadsheet. So we can now see that Copilot has given us a summary of this information, and we can copy and paste that into Excel. We can also ask it to show us a chart. We now have a chart showing the 5 countries that won the most medals in this Olympics. Now I want Copilot to help me teach my middle school students about the Olympics. We can ask Copilot to help create a presentation. Copilot has walked us through what each slide should have on there, along with some tips for our presentation. Now we're going to ask Copilot to generate an image for this presentation. and we can select to use one of those images. If you don't like those images, you can make adjustments and it will create more. Copilot will give you examples of things that you can add. And then we can save that image and use that later. If you're curious about what else you can do in Excel with Copilot, we can always ask Copilot. In the prompt, we have entered, what can we do with Copilot in Excel? Copilot has told us that Copilot can analyze data, create charts and graphs, help with automation, data management. We can create pivot tables using functions. The possibilities are endless. You can also create rubrics to put into Excel. So we've now asked Copilot to create a spreadsheet of a rubric for high school introduction to biology. And here we go. Here's the table that it's created. And then once it's done, we can actually hit edit in Excel to make our adjustments as needed. Like Gemini, Copilot is a great AI tool to use with helping to get assistance or even analyzing data, creating presentations, getting recommendations on how to lay out those presentations, and generating images. Very similar to Gemini, Copilot can translate documents, create summaries, draft emails, and help adjust with some of the writing you may have. Both AI tools are great to use. It's always important that with using both of them, we keep students' data private. No names, no information. We want to ensure that students have full privacy when we use these tools. Students are also not able to use these tools with their JCPS emails. Now let's dig into the AI ethics. We briefly touched on some of these when we were going over how to use Gemini and how we were using Copilot. All this tech is super cool, but we have to use it all responsibly. We're going to go over now how we can do that. In using AI, educators have an incredible opportunity to revolutionize their lesson plans. AI tools can streamline research, personalize content, and create engaging activities. But with this power comes responsibility. Citing AI is crucial for maintaining academic integrity and setting a positive example for students. When we cite AI, we acknowledge the technology's contributions while emphasizing the human element of teaching. It shows students that AI is a tool to enhance, not replace critical thinking and creativity. It also fosters transparency and encourages open dialogue about the ethical use of AI in education. By citing AI, educators demonstrate their commitment to responsible innovation. It's a small step to make a big impact, empowering the next generation to navigate the complexities of an AI-driven world with integrity and confidence. So let's embrace AI as a valuable partner in education while using it responsibly and ethically to inspire and empower our students. We can even ask AI to cite the source for us. Let's jump back to our landforms worksheet and lesson plan we created. Below this lesson plan in the prompt, I'm going to ask Gemini to cite the response as a source for me. And here's how we can cite the responses when using AI. While AI has the potential to enhance education, it's crucial for educators to be aware of the potential biases. AI models learn from a vast amounts of data, and if that data reflects societal biases, the AI will inherit them. This can lead to biased outputs, which can have a negative impact on students. Educators need to be vigilant in identifying and addressing the biases in AI. By critically evaluating AI-generated content and supplementing it with diverse perspectives, educators can ensure that their lesson plans are inclusive and equitable. Let's take a look at what that can look like. Let's imagine that we're creating a lesson plan about historic inventors. So in Gemini, I will put in the prompt, generate a list of the best inventors in the US, and see what Gemini gives me. As we scroll through, we can see that Gemini has listed inventors like Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, the Wright brothers, Eli Whitney, Nikola Tesla, George Washington Carver, and Steve Jobs. As we look through this list, we can see that this data reinforces harmful stereotypes and excludes women, and there's still only one person of color on this list. Remember, AI is a tool, and like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how it's used. By using AI responsibly, educators can harness the power to create engaging and enriching learning experiences for all students. We can try this one more time and see if we get a different list. Now that we've asked AI to include women and people of color, we get a more diverse list. So after Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell and George Washington Carver, we have Garrett Augustus Morgan, Marie Van Buren Brown, and of course, Dr. Shirley N. Jackson, and so many more. AI can open doors when it comes to personalized learning. But with creating these personalized learning activities or lesson plans, we have a sacred duty to protect student privacy. Imagine an AI tool that tailors lessons to each child's strengths and weaknesses. It's powerful, but it can also collect sensitive data. We need to ensure that this information is handled responsibly. Think of a student struggling with math. AI could identify that struggle and offer targeted support, but we can't let that data be misused or shared without consent. Student privacy isn't just a legal requirement, it fosters trust and allows students to learn without fear. As we embrace AI's potential, we must also be vigilant guardians of student data. It's important that we teach our kids that their privacy matters in the classroom and beyond. Because in this age of AI, protecting student privacy isn't just good practice, it's essential. It's crucial that we embrace this technology responsibly. We must take ownership of the content we generate or help create with AI, from lesson plans to student assessments. Ensure the information is accurate, unbiased, and age appropriate. For instance, if you're using AI to generate a quiz on historical events, double check the dates and the facts. If an AI tool suggests a science experiment, make sure it's safe and aligns with curriculum standards. By taking responsibility for AI generated content, we protect our students, maintain trust, and lead the way in ethical education. Embrace AI, but always remember the human touch is irreplaceable. For additional IT resources, you can find more asynchronous and live trainings at jsps.me/teachpoint. View our YouTube channel at jsps.me/digital learning. Find a wide variety of resources on Google Classroom, Google Workspace, Infinite Campus, Rapid Identity, School Messenger, and so much more at jsps.me/TLC on our Technical Learning Center. Our IT3 team is always here to help. You can find additional resources at jsps.me/help. This is also where you can get password assistance, find live IT chats, and submit a ticket. Thank you for walking through using these AI tools, Copilot and Gemini. I hope now that you have a great grasp of the fundamentals of how we can use these tools in our everyday life, along with making our jobs a little easier. And now you can embrace the power of AI, but never forget the heart of education lies in the hands of dedicated educators.